Hello and welcome back to my Dandelion Diaries. We are on our last orange ink exploration today, and this category, I don't know, it's kind of like orange and then also kind of pink. I feel like oranges sometimes can lean really red and they can also sometimes lean really pink. So I've kind of classified this as red, orange, and coral because I feel like coral is another really orangey color, but it's also kind of pink. We'll see how this plays out. I have 10 inks today. One is a tiny bottle from the Diamine ink vent, but we're just gonna go ahead and talk about supplies and then jump straight into swatches. So for supplies, I have my standard A5 Hobonichi notebook here with the original Tomoe paper. I have a little tape dispenser here, which is what I use to hold the ink vials since I have not yet purchased an ink vial holder. I have a jar of water, a stainless steel condiment cup, plastic eyedropper, a Kakimori brass dip pen with the Sakura wood handle, which is what I will be using to write with today, and then my standard white t-shirt that I've been inking up for months now. Yeah, so let's go ahead and just dive straight in, and we're going to start with a shimmer ink actually, and this is the Robert Oster's exclusive with Vanness, and this is Hickory Aflame. This ink may be considered a little bit more brown or even a little bit more red brown, but I feel like with the gold shimmer that it has, it ends up making it a little bit more orange. If you were to uptake this without the shimmer, then yes, I probably would not place this ink in this category, but with the shimmer, it's like a dark red orange to me. It is stunning. I've talked about Robert Oster exclusive inks before in many of my videos. I love the shading. I love the quality of Robert Oster inks. And the exclusive ones are just more fun. And I think they do a really good job of like basing on where the companies are. So Vanness is in Arkansas and the Arkansas Razorbacks is the main football team. And this is probably a really good, I don't know, muddy version of that color with the Razorback red, but I don't know. I feel like it is a bit more orange to me, but maybe it's a bit more brown to others and a bit more red to some others. Like, it's just a really interesting ink all around. The next ink I have here is Diamine's Terracotta. And Diamine Terracotta is maybe a bit more red, again, red-orange, or darker brown red-orange. It does look very much like a wet terracotta pot in person. If you've ever done any kind of gardening or anything with terracotta pots, when they get wet, they turn this kind of like dark orangey brown color. And that's pretty much what this looks like. Diamine does a really good job, I feel like, with these colors. They have a few other reds that I have as well that are really close to this. I actually have one that's going to be next that's really close to this one as well. But Diamine Terracotta is a bit more red leaning than orange, so this one may not fit in the red-orange category, but I feel like it's pretty close. The next ink I have here is Diamine Ancient Copper, which after Diamine Terracotta, you're going to kind of see how close they are. Diamine Ancient Copper is a favorite in the fountain pen community based on the videos and accounts and everything that I watch and follow. So I feel like this is a good one to include in this group because it is red and it's orange, but it's also brown. I feel like Diamine Ancient Copper is a good shader, so it kind of showcases all three colors in one, whereas like the Diamine Terracotta is a bit more one-toned in that it's that red-orange color that has a little bit of brown shading to it. I personally really like Diamine Ancient Copper. It's not a color I would write with every day, even though I really do like brown inks. I just think it's, I don't know, it's not as special as I would think it would be, but maybe it's just because I'm drawn to different colors than others. So although Diamine Ancient Copper may not be my favorite, it could definitely be your favorite, and it does have some really nice shading qualities, so don't sleep on it if you haven't tried it. Definitely give it a shot. The next ink I have here is actually a new one to me. I only recently got this, and this is Robert Oster's Australis Oak. And while this one is probably a little bit more brown than red-orange, I think that it is absolutely beautiful, and I wanted to make sure to include it so you guys could see a large swatch of this gorgeous ink. I find this ink to be a little interesting because when it starts off wet, it's definitely this kind of like oaky brown color. It's definitely a good wood color. But when it dries down, it tends to be a bit more orange. Maybe even like a pinky orange, more towards like a coral. I don't know if it's just part of the shading in the ink and that it turns that kind of color, or if it's the Tomoe paper, Not really sure, but the properties of this ink was so interesting to me, and I definitely wanted to put it in a category like red orange or coral orange or something like that, because it didn't really fit in the browns for me. It's definitely a different color than brown. The next ink I have here is a Pilot Orange cartridge that I squirted into a ink vial. I feel like with Pilot Orange, when it starts off, it looks very orange. Honestly, in a finer nibbed pen, it does look pretty orange. But what I've experienced with it, at least with swatching it and then also using it in like dip pens and broader pens, is it turns a bit more red. Like it's more of a red orange. It's a deeper orange than just bright orange. I do think it's a bit interesting in terms of shading when it dries down, and I hope that the paper will showcase it this time. We'll see. I also find that with Pilot cartridges and overall cartridges in general, the ink tends to be a lot more concentrated. I don't know if that's just how like the manufacturing process is, but I find that cartridges are much more pigmented and concentrated than that of ink bottles, which I find really interesting because ink bottles are like literally bottles of the same stuff. So I don't know, maybe it's a manufacturing thing. The next ink we have is Pilot Iroshizuku Fuyu Gaki, and this one stands for Winter Persimmon. There's actually lore behind the persimmon tree, if you are curious. If you cut open a persimmon and look at its seeds, and then you cut the seed open, it'll either have a spoon shape, a fork shape, or a knife shape. And depending on the shape inside the seed is what will determine what your winter will be like. So if you have a knife shape, it will be strong, cutting cold winds that like cut you like a knife. If you get a spoon, it's going to be heavy snows. You'll need a shovel basically to like spoon the snow out. And then if you get a fork, I believe it means that it's going to be a pretty like standard winter. I'd have to double check the fork one, but I remember the knife and the spoon one really well. I personally have a persimmon tree and I didn't get any fruit this year at all, so I don't know exactly what we're going to be expecting, but hopefully 2023 will have a kind winter to us because the past few years have been really, really heavy. The next ink I have here is Ferris Wheel Press Golden Gate Glow. Golden Gate Glow is definitely more of a coral pinky base, but it is still very orange. It's kind of a lighter version of Fuyu Gaki in my opinion, and it's much drier. Ferris Wheel Press tends to be a bit of a drier ink too. I will say in terms of shading, the shading in this is fantastic. It is a lighter ink, so it may not be visible to all. I don't struggle with this one, maybe because it's a bit more red based, but I would say in terms of, I guess, lightness, if you put this in a finer or an extra fine nib pen to write with, it would be a little bit more challenging to see just because the shading wouldn't be there to give it that darker tone. The next ink I have here is from the Diamine Inkvent 2022, the green one, and this is Celebration, and it is a shimmer ink. Diamine Celebration is this gorgeous peachy, corally, orange toned red color. Yeah, it's like all the colors. It does have a nice bit of shading, and it also has this beautiful, almost rose gold shimmer to it. I really like this ink. Again, the Diamine Inkvents always tend to surprise me, so if you can get one, highly recommend. I'm very excited for the purple one for this year. Anyways, this ink is stunning. It's a beautiful color. I honestly think this is a really good like springtime color. I know it's meant to be like for the Christmas season because it's celebration and it's part of the Inkvent, but I really do think this color would be really nice in the springtime. It reminds me of the blooming nasturtiums and honestly roses and any kind of peachy colored flower. It is so beautiful. Yeah, I really do like this ink, and I'm glad I have a very tiny bottle of it. The next ink we have here is Ferris Wheel Press, definitely peachy. I'm gonna just say this now before I swatch it. It's a very light ink. Definitely peachy is much too light for my eyes, but I think this is a really good color, honestly, if you're doing any kind of ink painting with Caucasian skin. This is a really good skin color ink in my opinion. It's just very light in terms of writing. I think if you had a broad nibbed pen or even a stub, you might be able to pick up some of the shading that it has when it dries down. But in terms of just standard like journal page writing, I can't read this one. It is a beautiful color. It's definitely corally, peachy, orange color. I don't know. I'm not going to use this one unless I paint with it because it's much too light. All right, the last ink I have for this ink exploration is another Ferris press, and this is Wonderland of Coral. So this one is a shimmer ink, and I will have to say that it is, again, very light. Wonderland of Coral is, again, that nice orangey, pinky, corally color. It is a little bit darker than the Definitely Peachy, but it is lighter than the Golden Gate Glow, so it's kind of like an in-betweener. I can read this one, even though it is pretty light. I would say in again in like a fine or extra fine nibbed pen, the shading doesn't show up as much, but that's obviously pretty common. The shimmer in this one is kind of like a champagne, it's like silvery gold color, so it is still a lighter shimmer. So with the lighter ink and the lighter shimmer, it can be a little bit difficult to see sometimes. Still, it is a gorgeous color. I really do enjoy this. I don't know, there's something about this color that reminds me of spring florals. It's just what it is. I would say Wonderland of Coral is, again, a drier ink, just because that's what I've found with Ferris press. If you wanted to do something that's similar in shade, I think the Diamine Celebration would be a good alternative. It's a little bit darker and the shimmer's a little bit different, but yeah, it's a really close color family, and even though it kind of like squirted into that swatch, you'll see that they're still different when they dry down. Alrighty, so I'm gonna let these finish drying. I do like that we have kind of like a darker moody orange over here to like a light springy orange over here, even though these kind of aren't really orange anymore, but it is what it is. I am excited to see how these dry, and like I said, I will be back in a minute to show you close-ups. Alright, I am back and everything is pretty much dried down. Definitely Peachy's still a little bit wet in the middle there, but I'm going to zoom you guys in and we'll do some close-ups. Starting off with our Robert Oster Hickory Aflame Vanness exclusive. Look at it, it's so stunning. Like I said, it could be a bit more orange, red, or brown depending on who's looking at it. I still think it's a bit red-orange, like a dark red-orange. It does have a black sheen and then obviously that kind of like goldish, coppery shimmer to it. Really beautiful, stunning ink to write with. Looks really good in a broader nibbed pen. I have put it in a fine nib pen before and it just wasn't my favorite, but I definitely think in a bigger pen it would do really well. Then we had Diamine Terracotta. Has this gorgeous black sheen with some shading to it. I really like terracotta, honestly, in terms of its closeness to ancient copper. It's a bit more muddy orange, whereas the copper is a bit more red orange, I guess. I don't know, they're kind of close. The Diamine Terracotta, like I said, has that beautiful shading in the middle there and the black sheen. It's a great standard ink. I think if you wanted to have a kind of muddy orange red color, this would be one I would go for over the ancient copper, but that just might be my preference. Then we had Diamine Ancient Copper, which, like I said, it's really close to terracotta. It's a bit more orange than terracotta is. Terracotta is more red. Man, how many times am I going to say orange and red in this video? But it does have a black sheen just like the terracotta does, and it does have that kind of like darker red-brown shading as well. I do think the Ancient Copper is loved by more people just because it does have a bit of a brightness to it compared to the terracotta. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'd prefer the terracotta over the Ancient Copper, if I'm being honest. Then we had Robert Oster's Australis Oak. It is pretty orange, like an orange brown almost. It doesn't really look that way next to all of these other ones, but I'm so glad I included it in the red orange page. It does have some brown shading, so it is brown, but it is orange to me too. So like the base is more of like a beigey orange color and the shading is nice brown, but I think, I don't know, maybe it doesn't really fit in this family anymore. I can't decide. Then we had the Pilot Cartridge in the orange, and it is red-orange. The shading gets that nice kind of almost peachy red color, and then the base is orange-orange. Like I said, Cartridge inks tend to be a bit more pigmented for me, so this one is a bit brighter, and I feel like the bottled inks are usually a bit more muted. So I don't know if that's really similar to anything else, but in my experience, the Cartridge inks are a little bit more pigmented. Then we had Pilot Iroshizuku Fuyu Gaki, or Winter Persimmon. This does have that really cool, like almost green sheen to it, and has some nice darker red-orange shading. I think this one is the perfect color for red-orange, honestly. It's red and orange, but being on the coral side, now it's starting to look a little bit more pink. So I think your ink just depends on what you pair it with and what color you think you want it to be. Then we had Ferris Wheel Press Golden Gate Glow. Gorgeous shading on this one. Again, it is a lighter ink, but I can still read this one. The base is kind of like a peachy, like orange pink color, true coral in my opinion. And the shading is a bit darker, more of like a red coral. Yeah, we'll go with that. Then we had Diamine's Celebration. I love this ink. It is so pretty. I still think it's a very springtime ink. It's a bit more pink than orange, but it still has that corally base. With the rose gold shimmer in it, or the coppery shimmer, whatever color you want to call that, I think it does make it a bit more, I don't know, pink looking than orange. And the shading is kind of like a darkish red coral again. So similar to Golden Gate Glow, just a little bit darker. Then we had Ferris Wheel Press Definitely Peachy, which is again still wet a little bit in the middle there. It does have some nice shading, but it is so unbelievably light in color. I don't even think in a broad nibbed pen I could read this one. I can hardly read it with a swatch. It's a beautiful wash color if you wanted to like do some watercolor painting on a page with it, but yeah, it's not my favorite. It's a pretty color, but it's too light for me. And lastly, we ended off with Wonderland in Coral by Ferris Wheel Press. Again, that beautiful kind of shimmer there. I do think this is a good combination of maybe like these two together, the Golden Gate Glow and Celebration, but it is a bit more orange than pink. So like Celebration's a bit more pink, and then Wonderland of Coral is a bit more orange. So it's totally up to you in preference. I still think it's a gorgeous color. It's a little bit light like the Golden Gate Glow, but I can still read this one. I think that shading has a lot to do with it, but I don't think I'd put it in any fine nibbed pen or anything like that. All right, that is it in terms of the like reddish orange and corally orange inks that I have for you guys today. Let me know what you think in the comments. Did I do okay? Are these too pink? Are these too red? I don't know, but I'm glad I tried this out in the first place. If you have a favorite on the pages, I would love to know, or if you have any recommendations that you think would fit into this category, I'd also love to see those in the comments, because I do enjoy seeing what kind of ink recommendations you guys have, and if there's anything I may want to pick up. If you're interested in any of the other ink explorations I have done, I will leave a playlist down in the description and also up in the cards, and you can watch our journey through blacks, blues, browns, greens, and so forth. And I'm really excited because we're going to be moving on into our next color family. And be sure you're checking out my Instagram and now Facebook page, where I will be having polls to see which guys you want to vote for next. So it's going to be reds, pinks, or purples, and I'm really excited. So stay tuned for that. Again, I want to thank you guys so much for watching and for joining me here today, and I will be happy to see you in the next one. Bye.